Привет, друзья. Hello, friends. It's me, Catherine Ivers Norton, the author of The Stain, for our 7th edition of the Facebook Jail Sessions. It's November 18th, 2021. And today we're going to be taking a peek at the 7th chapter, Let's Do Laundry. So after the initial upheaval of chapter 6, things have settled back down. They recovered from that. And Sergei is taking her to her first socialite party in St. Petersburg. And she's dressed sexily in French clothing and feeling very confident. And the night goes pretty well. And it's towards the end of the night where the sophisticated atmosphere has broken down. Sergei is locked into a political discussion with some guy in another room, and she's not feeling well and she wants to leave, but she doesn't want to interrupt him because he can be a little cranky about that. So she's just trying to wait it out in the other room. And that's where we're going to pick up. See how this goes. One of the men kept staring at me. I met him earlier in the evening when he'd spoken with Sergei. He seemed to be looking for investors for a casino in Grecia, which I inferred meant Greece. The discussion was serious, yet he seemed to be more interested in me than Sergei's wallet. His furtive glances made me feel uneasy. Sergei did not seem to notice, so I did not think much of it. American visitors were a novelty here. Perhaps he was simply curious. Someone put techno music on, and the pulsing, repetitive beat made my head throb. The room hung with a dense layer of cigarette smoke that stung my eyes. The walls began to close in on me. I was hot, my palms were sweaty, and my heart began to race. I recognized the razor-wire edge of panic beginning to build and tried to distract myself by examining details, the curtains, art, and carpet. Anything to focus attention outside of myself. I glanced around for more distractions, and there he was, waiting. Our eyes met again. A warm, welcoming smile lit his face. I smiled back nervously. It would have been rude not to. I didn't mean to stare, but I had never seen a man like him before. He was enormous, over 6 feet tall and broad. He was muscular, but not inflated like he spent time pumping up his muscles in the gym. He was just a powerfully built man with a lot of meat on his bones. He tossed his suit jacket aside when the formality of this party broke down an hour ago. His white dress shirt was unbuttoned at the neck, revealing a gold chain that disappeared out of view. Wavy, dark brown hair framed his broad face and set off his large, greenish golden hazel eyes. His thick, black eyelashes were extremely long, but they did not make him look feminine. Instead, they gave him a sultry appearance so convincing, I imagined he was a master of the carnal arts. His strong nose was long and straight. It led down to full cherry lips that glistened with light as if he had just licked them. My gaze lingered there for a little too long, so I looked down at his hands. The long fingers of his right hand tapped the beat of the dance music playing in another room. There was a hefty gold signet ring on the middle finger of his left hand with a prominent Cyrillic letter B, which corresponds to a V in the English alphabet. Vladislav Pavlovich Valkov. His name was a mouthful, but I had no trouble remembering it. Everyone called him by the familiar name Slava. He seemed to be well liked by the people here. Some of the men clapped him on the back as if he'd recently won an award, a gesture of affection and respect, perhaps. He was not wearing a wedding band. I quickly glanced back up to his awaiting eyes. His smile was even broader now. I found him perilously attractive. My unease sharpened suddenly, and I had an urgent desire to leave. I looked to the right to see my husband still steeped in conversation with a dignified blonde man in the next room. He was facing the other way, but his hands gestured as if he was making an emphatic point. Politics. I knew better than to bother him when he was in the middle of a rant. that conversation would probably take a while. I did not want my first night out in Russia to end early, especially after spending the first 3 months isolated in the country, but I could not sit here any longer. I glanced at the handsome stranger one last time. He nodded his head slightly to his right and shot me a little wink. I laughed. The attention was flattering. Too bad I wasn't single. I was surprised to feel the floor undulating beneath my feet as I rose to stand. I bent down to remove my strappy black heels and carried them casually on a finger, trying to look nonchalant. The other guests were drinking vodka late into the evening. Surely no one would notice if the American was a little tipsy from a few glasses of wine. I made my way to the kitchen and found it mobbed with people smoking and talking. My eyes burned in the haze. I decided to find a quieter place to collect myself. I remembered seeing a modern laundry room nearby, so I picked up a bottle of mineral water and set off in search of it, praying it would be dark, deserted, and cool. Thankfully, it was. I marveled at the fine honey maple cabinetry and white marble countertops. There was no sign of Soviet austerity, with 2 washers, 2 dryers, and a sink with a waterfront view. This laundry room was the poshest I'd ever seen. I stood at the sink and gazed at the city lights twinkling outside the window as I swallowed 2 tablets of aspirin from my purse and drank the entire bottle of water. Hopefully, it would be enough to stave off a hangover. I closed my eyes and inhaled deeply, pausing to hold the air for a moment before releasing slowly. I repeated the breathing exercise for several minutes. Feeling clearer, I turned to leave. My heart jolted to discover a wall of a man blocking the exit. Vladislav Valkov. The big man eyed me with mischievous intent, but said nothing. His powerful presence held me like a deer frozen in the headlights of his eyes. We gazed at each other for a long moment until I blinked and looked away. I could not speak Russian, so I shot a little embarrassed smile and tried to step around him. I was tired and wanted to go home with my husband. I certainly didn't want to deal with a behemoth drunken admirer. Vladislav put his hands on my shoulders to stop me from leaving. My shoes fell from my finger and clattered to the floor as I took a step backward. I was stunned, but I felt no fear. I did not cry out for help. I did not say no. Niet was one of the Russian words I knew. I was so stunned, I did not say anything at all. All right. I need to stop there before it gets a little spicy. Let's unpack this. Has this kind of thing ever happened to you where, you're with someone and there's a misunderstanding, but you kind of like the other person and, you can drop me a note or send me a private message. It's okay. I guess, in my take on this situation is Cassandra, she went from being socially phobic to having extreme social anxiety that led her to be a scholar and a 28-year-old virgin before she met Sergei. And then once they're married, she's exploring her sexuality. They're having a good time. He's very domineering, so she becomes kind of submissive to him in different ways. You have to read the story to know more about that. But she's kind of like primed, for responding. And she likes this guy. This guy is very handsome to her and very attractive. And what happens next is it's complicated. Of course, everything in this book is complicated. So, but who hasn't been there? Have you ever been on a date with someone where you didn't think you were going to go there, but you did, and you just didn't stop yourself? But this is one of those times for her, and she has very little experience. I'm not making excuses, but it is complicated. Okay, so this is a very spicy chapter, and we're starting to get into more of the meat and potatoes of the book. because, you know, as long as there's no trouble, there's no drama, there's, you know, everything is fine. You know, I don't even know, it's good, but it's not a dramatic psychological story. And so what happens is Sergei finds her with him. She's on the counter and he's holding her and they're kissing. And there's a little bit more going on than that, but that's the gist of it. So of course Sergei explodes. He's very upset, and then what happens next? We know that he has a psychological issue, and this is a trigger for him. So what happens next? You'll have to tune in tomorrow to find out about. So that's it for today. It's a rainy, soaking wet day in Ithaca, and I'll be taking the dogs to the lake for a swim since they'll be soaking wet anyway. Who cares, right? So my wish for you today is just to think about times where you were swept away by passion and made poor choices, because I think we've probably all been there, right? So remember that, and if you have any harboring, like lingering negative feelings about that, just, you know, we're human. This is part of the experience of life, and drama is interesting, and this is how we learn. So forgive yourself, and it's okay. But if you look back at your younger self, or maybe this happened to you last night, I don't know, and just, you know, forgiveness, it's okay. Forgive, it's all right. You know, we're human. We're supposed to have these experiences, and then, you know, how we learn and grow from them is, you know, really what matters. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Пока.